My name is Allison McMillan, and I am super excited to be here in Australia talking about working remotely. This is my first time in Australia. So far, it's been amazing. We've introduced our son to the beach and the pool and warm weather again. It's been really great. I work at General Assembly with this guy, Kevin Hopkins. Kevin is one of our engineering managers who also works remotely. This is his work view, and this is mine. And unfortunately, Kevin could not make it to Australia. But we worked on this talk together. So at General Assembly, a portion of our team works at headquarters in New York City, and a portion of us work remotely from all over the world. Kevin and I have been working remotely for a number of years in a variety of different situations in different companies. So remote work is becoming a more regular option for a variety of people. In a McCrindle research study, 55% of respondents reported being more productive when working from home. And a whopping 80% said that they would stay with an employer longer if their employer allowed remote work or teleworking options. And this statistic is actually even larger for US-based studies. And then finally, a US study from Global Workplace Analytics found that regular telecommuting grew by almost 80% between 2005 and 2012. A Melbourne University study found that people who worked from home started their workday earlier, worked up to 3 hours longer, often in lieu of having to commute, were more productive and felt more energized, and had less stress and less distractions. And so just to give you a 5-second background on us, Kevin has worked on-site and remotely as both a developer and a manager. Before becoming a developer, I worked in an office managing a partially remote team. And then since becoming a developer, I've only worked remotely as a newer dev. And so with our experience, we thought it was really important to talk about working remote, not just from like a these are the tools we use sort of perspective, but to really go deeper than that. So Kevin and I looked at a variety of situations that we experience on a regular basis with our team, and we grouped these situations into 3 buckets: communication, productivity, and culture. So today we're going to take a look at different situations related to each of these 3 buckets and examine them through 3 different perspectives: what it's like to be a remote manager, what it's like to be a remote newer developer, and how to get your company as a whole to understand what remote work means for developers at all levels. So this also means that there is a lot that I'm not going to be covering. I'm not going to talk about how to get started working remotely, either as an individual or as a company, or how to be successful at remote work as an individual. And we're not really going to talk that much about the everyday tools that distributed teams use. But we are happy to talk about those things offline. You can feel free to find me throughout the conference or tweet at either Kevin or myself. Kevin is actually on Twitter, online, in America, waiting for your tweets right now. So yeah, he'll be on Twitter sort of throughout this talk and after a little bit. So bucket 1 is communication. Some situations that we've seen with our teams include meetings can be really tough because it's hard to hear what's going on. I love having meetings without having to find meeting space. Sometimes I feel left out because I don't overhear stuff in the office. And we can never hear our remotes during our all-hands or product-wide meetings. So what can you do as a newer developer? Well, first, we've got a variety of tools at our disposal. You should be really comfortable with them. Most teams use Hangouts, Skype, Screen Hero, Slack, etc. So know how to use each of these and how to leverage each one. And then this really relates to all of the buckets, but always be asking questions and really make sure that you're pushing yourself to do so. It's more difficult as a remote, newer developer because A, you probably have more questions. B, you most likely feel like you're bothering people. And C, you're also probably really afraid that you're going to get fired for not knowing stuff. It's also really difficult because you can't see what others are doing, right? You can't just slide your desk chair over and say, like, hey, can you answer this question real quick? Or, hey, can you take a look at this to see if I'm on the right path? And so one thing that I personally did was when I started out, I set a goal of asking 100 questions every week, which made asking questions into a really positive thing, something that I had to do in order to achieve my goals, as opposed to something that was really scary and negative. Get to know your teammates. Don't be afraid to rely on them for help and vice versa, because having a really strong team bond can help you through a slog and can help everyone feel more successful. As a manager, you can set the expectations for team communications. Is the expectation asynchronous, synchronous, somewhere in between? It's really important to set the tone here and to clarify this with your product managers, your peers, and all of the individuals on your team. And then share information. Right? Fostering a relationship with each of the people you work with is essential for both sides of the conversation, as a manager and as an employee. These relationships create a rapport and comfort level for sharing information, feedback, and how each person is doing. One-on-ones. One-on-ones are the biggest vehicle that you have into your teams and developers. You need to really shape the feel of your one-on-ones to surround a number of important topics. They should be in an environment of openness, honesty, and transparency. They should really strive to ask the question, how are you doing? One-on-ones are a great place to pick up on red flags and find trends and patterns amongst the team. Look for patterns of isolation or siloing. These surface faster in a one-on-one conversation than anywhere else. And then you can pattern match and find groups that tend to create islands. Figure out how to embrace that and use it as a vehicle to combat that feeling of being isolated. And then most importantly, never cancel your one-on-ones unless you really, really absolutely have to. Try not to reschedule or keep them in flux. Know that as a manager, your job will potentially be more involved. The essence of being remote can exacerbate many situations and make seemingly easy things that much more difficult. So when it comes to important information, there's no office chatter or water cooler, so you have to proactively reach out and get it. As a manager, you need to keep your ear to the ground and seek out all that vital information that you need. Getting the rest of your company on board with working remote can be a challenge. For meetings that need to be synchronous, like stand-ups, iteration planning meetings, or retrospectives, have everyone at their computer. It makes the meeting feel much more connected since everyone can see everyone else. Make sure there's a good environment for meetings. Having access to quiet space in the office, proper audio-video equipment, and a stable internet connection makes meetings much, much better. And for on-site developers with remote teammates, they should have a couple of standard things to help them collaborate better, like noise-canceling headphones, use of quality video conferencing software that supports enough people, and nominate someone as a facilitator to get any AV equipment set up before the meeting starts. For meetings in general, start your meetings on time. Make sure that everyone, remotes included, are there before sharing really important information. And then celebrate together. Right? Celebrating is super important. When you're celebrating something like a feature launch or your product or engineering team on site is celebrating, find a way to include your remote teammates, whether it's by setting up a video feed and microphone, bringing people into the office to celebrate if they'd like, or conferencing in remote teammates for team or company presentations. Making sure that you're celebrating together is really important. And then think about the perks. Does your company ever provide lunch for employees in the office or for things like an all-hands meeting? Well, offer up some lunch reimbursement for your remote team members so that they are getting the same benefits as the in-office folks. So this is a summary slide of all the points that we just went over for this bucket. There'll be one of these at the end of each bucket that you can take a closer look at when slides are posted online. Our second bucket is productivity. Situations related to productivity may include I want to ask for help, but don't want to interrupt someone in the zone. Busy teammates means that sometimes I'm blocked. And I want the flexibility to be in the office when I want to be and out of the office when I want to be. So again, starting as a newer developer, don't be afraid. If you're afraid or worried, then you will hold yourself back as a remote developer. You'll probably sink into some corner of your house. You'll only take the tasks that you know how to do. You'll spend lots of time twiddling your thumbs, feeling like you're letting your team down. You must take chances, and you must put yourself out there. You must be fearless and extra communicative in order to succeed as a remote, newer developer. Time box communications. So this includes how long you wait for a response, how long you wait before asking again, how long you work on something before asking for help for the first time, and not spending time on useless communications. So, for example, you could be working for too long or too short on something, but it's really difficult to tell because others can't see what you're doing, and no one can see your frustration level or if you're stuck. So one suggestion is to note how long you spend on certain tasks, and then talk to your team about them to decide whether you should be spending more time or less time on them. Time zones are our favorite, right? Always thinking about time zones, make sure that newer developers overlap a lot with senior devs. One warning, if you are the first remote person at a company, regardless of your level, we don't recommend that you do it unless there's a really solid structure in place and plan of action for more remotes. If you're a manager, foster communication in your teams and lead by example. Nothing derails healthy team habits from forming, like having leadership that doesn't follow the rules of the group. Leading by example can be an effective tool in making remote teams operate like a well-oiled machine. The feeling of constant checking in can decrease everyone's autonomy and productivity, so create avenues for discussion, whether it's on-topic work discussion, personal chatter that people want to share, or a medium for official updates on progress. And stick to them. So create a chat channel the central hub for updates. Create a healthy regimen for checking in that doesn't bombard people, and block your time to be undistracted. For your company to understand remote working, if you feel like you really want someone in the office, think about why, and also how it would affect them. So I had a position where they wanted me in New York from DC, which is about a 4-hour train ride. They wanted me in the office 2 days a week. And so I would take the 5 a.m. train up on Tuesdays and the 4:30 p.m. train back on Wednesdays, and it was killer. I was often too tired to get a lot done in the office, and I really felt like my time in the office was just a regular day as opposed to really being utilized for the stuff that I needed to be face-to-face for. Company-wide, again, people should really work hard to tamper that constant need to check in and see, like, oh, are those remotes really working? So make sure that leadership knows this. And so here's that summary again for this section. The last bucket I want to cover is culture. Some situations that come up around culture are, I really feel connected to my team on a regular basis. Getting to know people from a variety of backgrounds and lifestyles has helped shape my perspective. Not having a commute allows me to have a better attitude at the beginning and end of the workday. And my team does a good job about respecting my off hours. As a newer developer, pairing is really helpful, but I suggest having regularly scheduled pairing times because this helps you out in a variety of ways. First, you can ask a bunch of smaller, quick questions that might help you finish up and ship a few tickets or cards quickly. Or second, you can pair on a challenge card, something that you know you need help in order to get started on, or you know you'll need help in order to finish up. Or third, you can get to know your teammates, and they can get to know you, and so then you can work on specific topics or things with specific people based on what you work best on together. Regardless, having a regular time set up really ensures that you're growing and you're getting the assistance that you need without the fear of interrupting your teammates. So this relates to developers at all levels, but I find that when I work from home, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to always be working. So recognize that you'll have some really super productive days, and you'll have some less productive days. Cut yourself some slack on those less productive days, and realize that even if you were working from an office, you'd also have those moments. And then always remember that even though you might be a newer developer, you're just as valuable on the team. You have things to teach people as well as to learn. So one of my first performance reviews, somebody said that they learned more from me about working with a junior developer than they had from anyone else in their entire career, which of course made me feel awesome. But more importantly, it also made me realize that I had a really unique set of soft skills and that I was a really valuable member of the team, even if my coding ability was at a less experienced level compared to others. As a manager, introduce newcomers to other people on the team. Don't just say, oh, welcome so-and-so on Slack or whatever, but actually go out of your way to introduce them to other team members, to key players, tech leads, senior developers, et cetera. Encourage established teammates to reach out to newer folks. Have them set up one-on-one sessions to really get to know each other, because building that camaraderie is really what helps make remote teams work. Establish a welcome package that keeps remotes in mind. Welcoming can be really powerful, creates a sense of comfort, and helps alleviate feeling like that new person. At the same time, it helps the rest of the team, it helps create a real sense of value in their arrival, and can also be a great opportunity for an icebreaker. Know the group and team dynamics and personalities. Help to establish soft skills in your team, like empathy, giving the benefit of the doubt, and healthy, proactive communication. Pay attention to people's tendencies, and try matching up complementary skills and personalities accordingly. You can create the perfect storm of success by stacking the deck with the right folks. Help the rest of your company understand remote work. So people in other areas of your company might not work with remotes every day or really understand what it's all about. Once in a Q&A about remote work, somebody asked us, so besides being less productive, what are some of the disadvantages of working remotely? So you can help everyone involved by doing things like presenting about remote working to your company, encouraging some work from home days, and giving others that first-hand knowledge about what remote work or the remote experience is like. Have regular discussions about your team culture as a group. Talk about what's going well and what parts aren't so hot. Find out how to continually iterate on making your culture better. Give everyone a voice. On-site and remote, junior and senior, everyone alike, because everyone has a stake in good culture. So treat it as an open forum for discussion. So again, here's that summary for this section. Hiring remote developers at any level can be incredibly beneficial for your company. You can gain access to a wider pool of candidates, and you enable your company to have more on-call time zone coverage areas. You can increase your team's diversity by considering individuals from different geographic perspectives. Of course, I had to throw a picture of my kid in this deck. So personally, I also want to say that working remotely while pregnant and as a new mom has been incredibly beneficial. I was able to have flexibility regarding doctor's visits and appointments. I didn't have to awkwardly remove myself from meetings when I have morning sickness. And now as a working mom, I have a comfortable place to pump. My company doesn't have to worry about providing me with a separate lockable room with all the amenities that I need access to in order to pump effectively, which saves the company a lot of stress and money and some space as well. So with all of this positive talk about working remotely, I also want to issue a bit of a warning. Remote work sounds really fantastic to most people, but remember that remote work in general isn't for everyone. You really need to know yourself, you need to know your personality, you need to know how you work and how your team interacts. This is especially true for newer developers. You're at a higher risk to isolate yourself and be afraid to ask questions or take chances, and you could end up spending your days being busy doing nothing. Be aware of these risks and be realistic with yourself when you consider remote junior dev work, or if you're a company considering remote newer developers. But I know the idea of having remote junior or less experienced developers can be really scary for companies, but it doesn't have to be. Junior devs can be just as successful as senior developers working remotely. You just need to ask them the right questions and make sure that you have the right structures in place to support them. So if making remote work on your team is something that you're interested in, or if you want to talk further about anything in this presentation or the things that we needed to leave out, come and talk to us. Thank you again. You can find me throughout the conference. You can tweet at either myself or Kevin if you've got questions or comments. And I'll be posting these slides online at some point today with an additional slide or two that has some more resources. Thank you.